I'm going to tell you guys, this letter that President Trump wrote, I guess, to McConnell, about McConnell, his statement about McConnell, whatever you want to call it, he roasted Mitchell McConnell up. Toasted that man, bruh. Toasted him. Okay? He came for the neck. Okay? And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen it, but man, he eviscerated Mitch. And nobody should be surprised about this, right? And what's funny to me is that I was actually watching CNN last night. And of course they was talking about Trump. They got to talk about Trump. And they were acting all kind of surprised about the GOP civil war, right? As if it was something that is new to us. And guys, if you've been watching my channel, right, at least since the election, I've been talking about the GOP civil war ever since Trump made the first accusations about Georgia. Okay? I've been talking about the Mitch versus Trump for a long time. And I just think it's funny how some people in the progressive media, the liberal media, and even some of the conservative media have not been talking about this as nearly as much as I have been. And I've been telling people this is what is actually happening, right? Which is funny. You know, I'm just, making an observation there. Again, to me, this is no surprise, and it shouldn't be any surprise to you guys. Now, let's go ahead and get into what exactly was said on the letter, because this is going to detail Trump's beef with Mitch McConnell in a way that I think is very Trumpian. And apparently, this would have been a lot more Trumpian if they had initially released the original letter that Trump wrote. But apparently, in his original letter, Trump took a lot more personal shots than he did in this one. So let's go ahead and read. The Republican Party can never be respected or strong with political leaders like Senator Mitch McConnell at its helm. McConnell's decision to business as usual status quo policies, together with his lack of political insight, wisdom, skill, and personality, has rapidly driven him from majority leader to minority leader and will only get worse. The Democrats and Chuck Schumer play McConnell like a fiddle. They've never had it so good, and they want to keep it that way. We know our America First agenda is a winner, not McConnell's Beltway First agenda or Biden's America's Last. In 2020, I received the most votes of any sitting president in history, almost 75,000. Every incumbent House Republican won for the first time in decades, and we flipped 15 seats, almost costing Nancy Pelosi her job. Republicans won majorities in at least 59 of the 98 partisan legislative chambers, and the Democrats failed to flip a single legislative chamber from red to blue. Right? This part is 100% true. The Republicans won seats in the House, even though they were projected to get blown out in the House. They were projected to lose more seats in the House. For all intents and purposes, according to the polls, Biden should have had a super duper majority. Right? That's what should have happened. He should have had a super duper majority. The Democrats should have been able to pass whatever legislation they wanted without no consideration from the Republicans. Right now, they still have to consider Republicans. They still have to get certain Democrats on board, like Joe Manchin and others who are more moderate. They still have to get them on board, because although they have majority control, they don't have enough to actually pass anything they want, specifically in the Senate. Okay? And in Mitch's Senate, over the last 2 election cycles, I have single-handedly saved at least 12 Senate seats, more than 8 in the 2020 election cycle alone. And then came the Georgia disaster, where we should have won both U.S. Senate seats. But McConnell matched the Democrat offer of $2,000 stimulus checks with $600. How does that work? It became the Democrats' principal advertising, and a big winner for them it was. McConnell then put himself, one of the most unpopular politicians in the United States, into the advertisers. Many Republicans in Georgia voted Democrat or just didn't vote because of the anguish at their inept governor, Brian Kemp, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, and the Republican Party for not doing its job on election integrity during the 2020 presidential race. All right, so this is Trump hitting back at McConnell about Georgia, because McConnell has been telling people and been saying that the reason why the Republicans lost Georgia is because of Trump. right? That's what he's saying. He said because Trump came out and asked for his $2,000 stimulus checks and his claims about the election, that's why they lost Georgia. That's what Mitch is saying. Trump is saying, on the other hand, that they lost Georgia because Mitch refused to put forward the $2,000 stimulus checks when Trump had came out for it, when stimulus checks was a big issue in Georgia, right? That's something that Mitch McConnell even admitted himself, that the reason why they even included the $600 stimulus checks in the second stimulus package is because of how important of an issue stimulus checks was in Georgia, right? Mitch McConnell's on record saying that. So Mitch McConnell knew how important stimulus checks was. However, he decided at the end of the day that he wasn't going to up it to 2,000 like President Trump and the Democrats wanted. So they're going back and forth with each other, blaming each other over what happened in Georgia. And you guys can make your own decisions in regards to who you blaming for losing Georgia. It was a complete election disaster in Georgia and in certain other swing states. McConnell did nothing and will never do what needs to be done in order to secure a fair electoral system into the future. He doesn't have what it takes and never did and never will. My only regret is that McConnell begged for my strong support and endorsement before the great people of Kentucky in the 2020 election, and I gave it to him. He went from 1 point down to 20 points up and won. How quickly he forgets. Without my endorsement, McConnell would have lost and lost badly. Now his numbers are lower than ever before. He is destroying the Republican side of the Senate and in doing so, seriously hurting our country. Likewise, McConnell has no credibility on China because of his family's substantial Chinese business holdings. He does nothing on this tremendous economic and political and military threat. Mitch is a dour, sullen, and unsmiling political hack, and if Republican senators are going to stay with him, they will not win again. He will never do what needs to be done and or what is right for our country. Where necessary and appropriate, I will back primary rivals who espouse making America great again and our policy of America first. We want brilliant, strong, thoughtful, and compassionate leadership. All right, now, this is interesting from Trump because this is the game moving forward, right? It's about building up a coalition of people in your party that back Trump, okay? That's what he's trying to do here, right? And that's what he needs to be trying to do, right? If he wants to have serious power in the Republican Party, that's the next step. He has to build out serious political infrastructure, and that's not going to be easy. And the reason why it's not going to be easy is because Trump is going to have a hard time raising money from corporations. So everything that he does has to be grassroots, right? Like directly from the people, which obviously is a good thing. However, I'm just saying it's going to be a lot more difficult than, you know, it otherwise would be. Now, McConnell has come out and said that, you know, he particularly is not going to push back against Trump-backed candidates in red states and red areas that are going to win a general election. However, he has said that he will push back on Trump-backed candidates in areas that he believes that they will not be able to win general elections, right? So McConnell's argument is that he believes that Trump-backed candidates cannot win general elections, that Trump is so far removed from being popular with the general public that anybody that he's backing will not be able to win. And if Trump starts trying to primary certain Republicans, then in McConnell's eyes, he sees that as a threat to Republican control in the Senate and the House, because he's saying that those Trump-backed candidates will not win in the general. They might win primaries, but they won't win generals. Now, on the other hand, Trump kind of has the power here because, remember, guys, he has the people on his side and he has the local and state governments on his side. Anybody that's come out against Trump has been censured immediately, okay? So Trump has a tight grip on the people and the state and local governments. Well, the reason why he has a tight grip on the state and local governments is because he has a tight grip on the people, right? Like, that's just kind of how it goes. And it kind of trickles up. The Senate and the House can be a little bit more removed from Trump because they're not as close to the people as state and local governments are. That's just kind of how it goes. Now, Trump, again, he has the advantage here because he has this strong grassroots support. Trump-backed candidates are probably more easily going to win primaries than McConnell-backed candidates, right? People that's backed by Trump and endorsed by Trump are most likely going to win a lot of primaries. Okay, which again is going to create a problem for McConnell. It's going to create a huge problem. If what he says is true, that Trump-backed candidates can't win general elections, then essentially that is going to equal the Republicans losing a lot of power, right, moving forward, right? If what McConnell says is true. However, if Trump-backed candidates can win general elections, that would equal greater power for Trump in the future, right? Building out his political coalition. Because not only do you have the threat of being able to primary a establishment Republican out of their seat, but also you can replace them completely and win general elections. And if Trump can do that, then that's how he wins versus McConnell, right? That's the way that he can win. At the very least, he can punish the Republican Party, right? At the very, very least. It won't be hard for him to do that. What will be hard for him to do is to beat the establishment candidates and then actually go on to win general elections. If he can do that, that's how he takes over the party. That's how he now becomes the king maker. Like I've been telling you guys, Trump is king, but McConnell is still king maker because McConnell controls the legislation. Okay? McConnell sets the direction. However, we've seen this dynamic, kind of get a little muddy here because Trump has such a strong hold on state and local governments and the people. Right, so McConnell's status as kingmaker can be challenged by Trump, right? He can be challenged by Trump, but in order for Trump to become the kingmaker, Trump has to have the political infrastructure in place to win general elections. That's just what it comes down to. It's not enough just to primary Republicans. He has to be able to win general elections. Prior to the pandemic, we produced the greatest economy and jobs numbers in the history of our country, and likewise, our economic recovery after COVID was the best in the world. We cut taxes and regulations, rebuilt our military, and took care of our vets, became energy independent, built the wall, and stopped the massive inflow of illegals into our country, and so much more. And now illegals are pouring in, pipelines are being stopped, taxes will be going up, and we will no longer be energy independent. This is a big moment for our country, and we cannot let it pass by using third-rate leaders to dictate our future. Again, guys, like I said, this is no surprise to me, guys. And quite honestly, I know I said that, this was something that, has been brewing, and something I've been talking about since November. But, guys, I really think this rift between McConnell and Trump has existed long before the election, guys. Right? I mean, if you think about it, Trump's not a standard Republican, guys. Right? Like, Trump has certain beliefs about things that do not rely with the orthodox Republican ideology. Now, he's governed that way, right? He's governed in a way that's Reagan-esque, but I don't personally believe a lot of that was just him. I think a lot of that was him going along with, the typical Republican platform, which meant that a lot of that was him going along with McConnell and them probably butting heads a lot among the way when it came to certain things that Trump wanted to do outside of the modern day Republican orthodoxy. For example, I mean, like I said, we've talked about infrastructure. We talked about stimulus checks. Something else that you guys may not be aware of when it comes to healthcare. This is what Trump said back in 2015, 2016 about healthcare and his opinions on it. And a lot of you guys may be surprised to see that. But that's what he said, right? So I would imagine that, a healthcare system that Trump would want, at the very, very least, would have some type of government-sponsored plan. Okay? I would imagine that that's what Trump care would look like. Why is it that we really didn't get anything from Trump in regards to healthcare? Well, one, the Republicans didn't have the cojones to repeal Obamacare when they had opportunity to do it because they were afraid to take the hit for it. So they tried to leave it up to the Supreme Court to do it. The Supreme Court has let us know that basically they're not going to do anything about Obamacare either, right? Trump didn't have a chance because Republicans didn't have the cojones to replace it through legislation. They wanted somebody else to do their dirty work. So I would imagine that if they actually repealed Obamacare and replaced it like they said they would, I would imagine that Trump's plan, aka Trump Care, will replace Obamacare with something that probably would involve some type of government plan, right? Now, that's just based off what he said. I could be wrong on this, but I can imagine that that's not something that Mitch McConnell would go for. I can imagine that that's something a lot of people in the Republican establishment would not go for. Maybe Mitt Romney would go for it. But my whole point is that on certain issues, I think that Trump definitely butted heads with the Republican Party. And I think they hindered him from doing a lot of things that he otherwise would have done or wanted to do had it not been for the Republican establishment being so strong and having such a stronghold on legislation. And I think that's how it went down. I really think that's how it went down. And that's why this is kind of coming to a head and boiling up the way it is because this is something that's been brewing for the last 4 years. This isn't something that's just happened after the election. I don't think McConnell ever liked Trump before this. I don't think Trump really liked McConnell before this. I think they was going along to get along because they was on the same team, but behind closed doors, I don't think that they agreed on a lot. But at the end of the day, Trump did govern a lot like Reagan, which means that he governed a lot like what McConnell probably wanted him to do, which is why Lindsey Graham say they work great together. Because the establishment Republicans got a lot of policies that they wanted done. They got a lot of judges that they wanted appointed, okay? But that don't mean that Trump got everything that he wanted. And that's what people got to understand. Trump's just not coming out the blue being mad at McConnell and the establishment. This is something that's been boiling up for a while. But that's just my opinion on that. Who knows? Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.